Working with files in Python requires you to name the file to start with. So I'm going to start by calling it my file, although you can call it whatever you want. The open command provides a lot of options for you, such as the name. So I'm going to call this customers. In fact, it's going to be called players.txt, or if you want, call it .dat. Well, txt is a text file, so therefore opens automatically in Notepad for us to view. And I'm going to do for append. Remember, the other modes are a write, a W. There's also a read, which we'll be looking at a bit later on. But I'm going to use append, which will allow me to add a number of records. We could ask the user then, so I'm going to say num players equals input. In fact, I'm going to make it an integer. Input, this is going to be the number of loops I'm going to do here to enter the number of players. So I'm going to say input, how many players. At a later point, you may want to make that a while loop, as while the user is entering values. Just keep going, because they may not know how many users they're going, how many players they're going to enter. So, so I'm going to use a for loop, and of course we know how many times that's going to appear. So it should be, there we are, so that'll allow 4 loops, that'll allow 7 loops, but I'm going to say num players. Next line, and now I'm going to start getting the data from the user. So I'm going to say player name equals input. So I'm going to input the values. Input player name. Oh dear me, what's happening with the typing? Player name, and then we also want player age equals, and we'll input that. And player so we have player club. No need for a capital letter in that position there. And so that will allow us to enter. Now that will just loop, 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 and that will allow me to enter those values in. But of course I want to write them to the file. My file is called my file. Now I can see at this point that the tooltips aren't appearing, so I'm just going to save the file. Let's go to save as, and we'll save into my hard disk, into Python filing system. So I'm going to call this player storage system, and again just get rid of that capital letter. Save. So now once I save it, if I now exit, and I'll open up PyScripted again, and now I get the options will appear. Now I've saved it, it'll now allow us these tips. So my file.write, so we're going to write to a file, and I'm going to say write player name, and select from the option, but I also remember I want a new line, so I'm going to do \n, and then I continue that for my file.write. Player age plus the \n. Now you can either use apostrophes or quotation marks, whatever your particular preference happens to be. And then we're going to write the player club. And here we are. I go back to double for the purposes of keeping this all neat and tidy. I'll put the quotation marks in them all. So that will write those files to, those records to the file. And after it, if you put myfile.close into here, you must put the brackets, otherwise the close method doesn't get called. But if you put it in here, what's going to happen? You're going to enter one player, and it's going to close the file. And then the next player you're going to enter, and then at this line it's going to say an error such as my file is closed or something to that matter. So take the my file out of the loop. So it is now all of these 6 lines of code will be repeated num_players amount of times right into the file each time, and then it will close the file just the once at the end. I'm also going to say to the user, I'm just going to also say message box, all records are saved. Okay. We may also want a message box in the of course, message box doesn't make sense. That's in another language, so I'm going to print all records are saved. So I'm going to say here print enter next record. And I'm going to paste that just at the top here in the loop so the user knows that they're going to enter the next record. So let's go and have a look. There's no text file in here. Because I haven't put a path, I'm just actually going to be, it is going to be just the text file in the same folder. So if we run this now, and we'll just see, so how many players? So I'm going to say 4 players. So player name, Gary Herbert, and he's 34 years, and he plays for Hull. Nice short one to enter. Henrietta Thomas is 23 and plays for Man City, we'll say, and John Evans, 24. So it now finishes. It also tells me records are saved. I'm also going to go to the file. There is players.txt file which it made. It tells me it's 1 kilobyte in size. Well, it's not actually. It tells me down here it's 110 bytes. And what it's done, it's put in Gary Herbert 34, Hull, Henrietta. So we've got a record of information here for one player, a record for another player, a record for another player, and then finally the fourth player. And if I now added more and more players to that file, so again, if I run it, but this time I'm going to add, say, 2 players. So Amy Smith, and she's 23 and she plays for Chelsea also. And Jamal Nasser is 25 and he plays for Cardiff. So it's entered the 2, again all records saved, and because we've used the append mode, it's added those 3 down here. There's Amy Smith, sorry, those 2 down here. Okay, so that's how to add records to a file.